Welcome back. Lesson 19. We are reading about Congress's secret bunker. Honestly, guys, like, I couldn't have purposely planned more relevant content. I don't know if you saw recently, Trump was holed up in his bunker and took that picture in front of that church to get from his bunker to the church. They had to tear gas a bunch of protesters to clear them out so that he could come across safely uh, to then supposedly offer a message of peace. Some irony in that is lost on some people. All right. Question one, warm up. What is a bunker? So we're thinking right here. We're thinking, Fallout, the video game, if you're familiar with that series, where there's been nuclear war and everybody's living in these bunkers that they slowly start to come back out of and reestablish society once things are safe. Because the thing with nuclear disaster that makes it different than other disasters, why a bunker is way more necessary, is because nuclear war has fallout that lasts. It has a half-life before the radiation will be at safe levels for humans to be able to come out. If you've played Fallout, there's a radiation tracker. And if you get too much radiation, messed up stuff happens to you. Your skin starts to come off like the ghouls. Fallout really is a good primer for this. All right, so there's a blank page in my document that I gave you, and I could not get rid of that and still have our secret bunker Congress never used story the way I wanted to. But same with the last time. This is pretty short. I'm going to read it to you, and then we're going to do the work together. So, background. During the Cold War between the United States and the Soviet Union, nuclear war was thought to be a possibility. In the event of nuclear weapon used by either superpower, the survival of the government or indeed the population would be highly unlikely. So if you want more background on this idea, I would say a great thing to watch right now in terms of thinking about how people thought about that back then is the movie The Iron Giant. Not made from that period, but very representative of kind of how people thought and what they were worried about and what kinds of videos the kids were seeing in school about nuclear war. So, to read the piece. In a groundbreaking series of reports in 2010, Washington Post reporters Bill Arkin and Dana Priest revealed that 33 building complexes for top secret intelligence work are under construction or have been built in Washington, D.C. and the surrounding areas since September 2001. Before that building boom, however, another secret bunker lay in wait for the apocalypse. Behind a giant reinforced steel door. For 30 years it was kept secret. Hidden in West Virginia's Greenbrier Resort was a massive bomb shelter stocked with supplies for members of Congress in case of emergency. Welcome to Capitol Hill, the day after. Except this isn't Washington. It's a giant concrete box nestled into a hillside in White Sulphur Springs, West Virginia. The story of how the bunker was kept secret for 30 years and how it even got here is stranger than any conspiracy theory. For one thing, it was built as an addition to one of America's most famous luxury resorts, the Greenbrier Resort, in the foothills of the Blue Ridge Mountains. Bankers, industrialists, and government advisors all hobnobbed at the resort, unknowingly right next door to the post-apocalyptic bunker. When the Greenbrier's official historian, Bob Conti, arrived in 1978, locals started badgering him with questions. Why is there a 7,000-foot landing strip for a town of 3,000 people? He recounts. Mostly, he told them there was no such thing. Not that it was so the government could fly their people here in case of war and go to the bunker that's under Greenbrier. A secret home for the House and Senate. Thing is, Conti didn't really know anything about it. He knew every square inch of the Greenbrier's property. He had access to all the records and documents and historic photos of presidents and kings and prime ministers drinking mint juleps on the veranda. But just a few yards from Conti's own office was the reinforced bunker that would house every member of the House and Senate in the event of nuclear Armageddon. Behind 3-foot thick concrete walls is a space about the size of a Walmart. The air intake system is so intricate, it was meant to filter out radiation, that it creates a vacuum-like effect when you walk in. Wind howls around you and sucks all the doors shut. The sleeping quarters includes rows of metal bunk beds. All they had for private items that you could lock up was a small drawer right underneath the beds. You could put your personal items in here, Conti says. For 30 years, every one of those 1,100 beds was assigned to somebody. Built in an atomic age. To understand why and even how this bunker was built, right under the noses of America's vacationing aristocrats, you have to go back to the mid-1950s when a whole industry built around the construction of fallout shelters started to take off. In the late 1950s, President Dwight Eisenhower started to worry about how to maintain law and order in America in the aftermath of a nuclear war. I feel impelled to speak today in a language that, in a sense, is new, one which I, who have spent so much of my life in the military profession, would have preferred never to use, he said. That new language is the language of atomic warfare. Eisenhower decided that Greenbrier would be a perfect cover for a congressional bunker. In 1958, government workers broke ground on what they called Project Greek Island. It was about a 4-hour drive from Washington. Hotel workers and guests were told that the giant hole in the ground would house a new conference facility. In fact, it would, or at least part of it would. In the 30 years, thousands of people walked in and out of a secret bunker, not knowing they were in a secret bunker, which was part of the original design. Conti says in a room used as an exhibit hall. You would have the West Virginia Medical Association meeting here, and a lot of car companies have met here over the years, he says. Down another corridor is a room that was to be the floor of the House of Representatives. There were microphones, Conti says. You can see little metal attachments there on the back of the seats. They would attach microphones there because they would have recorded all sessions of Congress. There was a big communications center in here. Some strange clues. There were a few weird coincidences that Conti noticed before the bunker's existence was exposed by the Washington Post in 1992. For one, there were many, many, many bathrooms, and most of them were for men. Another thing was that both Gerald Ford and Hubert Humphrey were frequent guests of the Greenbrier when they served in Congress. Conti found out later that they would have been among the few people in the world who knew about the bunker. Finally, there was a mysterious crew of TV technicians who worked at the hotel but didn't work for the hotel. The company they worked for was called Forsyth Associates. As it turned out, Forsyth Associates was a cover. These were secret government employees who had to keep the bunker in a constant state of operational readiness. For that 30 years, you had to make sure all the filters were changed, all the pharmaceuticals were up to date, and all the food was ready to go, Conti says. That would be a 6-month supply of food, periodically refreshed. The secret moves on, but not the bunker. Today, part of the bunker is a tourist attraction. Another part is used as a secure data storage facility. Had it not been exposed in 1992, there's a good chance this would still be the secret home of the U.S. Congress. But now that secret home is somewhere else. And like the last one, just a handful of people know where it is. Post reporter Bill Arkin is one of them, and he's not saying. If you're a normal member of Congress, my guess is that you know nothing. You really know nothing, he says. So, how long was the bunker kept a secret? They say it a bunch of times, 30 years. So that is question number 1. It was kept a secret for 30 years. How many members of the House and Senate was the bunker designed to fit? So it had 1,100 beds. So it potentially could fit up to 1,100 people, right? What was the air intake system designed to do? It was designed to filter out nuclear radiation, right? We talked about that, how radiation has a half-life before it reduces, and it takes a long time. Long half-life, I should say. Everything has a half-life. Anyway, so filter radiation. Number 4, what kind of facility was the bunker disguised as? Greenbrier. It was disguised as this vacation spot for rich folks. Which kind of makes sense. Then, like, normal people wouldn't see it. If anybody, like, that goes there did discover it, they would be easily impelled by powerful people to, like, be quiet about it. So the last question, bunkers became popular because atomic warfare was common. Do you see any need for bunkers today? Why do you think this? So let's talk about it. I mean, maybe different kinds of bunkers, maybe radiation isn't as important, but at the same time, I mean, little rocket man, like we've been pushing those buttons again in a way we haven't in a while. So, I don't know. That's up to you. What do you think? Or are bunkers kind of classist? Like if we're gonna die, should we all die? Or how would they pick who goes in there? Is it gonna be a bunch of scientists? Are they more valuable than other people? Will it end up being a bunch of politicians because they get to make the decisions in their buttholes? Um, I mean, a lot of like the dystopias and sci-fi we're starting to see these days has to do with that, and I feel like this is the thing. You think about artistic movements. We study different movements, like the Renaissance or Renaissance happened over a period of like 20 years or something. That actually all of the stuff we study that we associate with that was produced, right? And it was more important and has been more lasting than everything else that surrounded it. There was still art being produced all those other years, but nobody remembered it. The albums that come out of what's happening right now, the art that is produced in response to this is going to overshadow everything that's been leading up to it. If you were not seen as a predecessor to what comes out of this, you're probably going to be forgotten in history as we study artistic movements, because this moment in history is so big, it's going to create a whole shift that will be studied. uh, you're a part of that. Whatever you create, you're going to be a part of shaping what that voice is. Technology always shapes it, right? The fact that like TikTok and Twitter are influencing the way that people create things in response to what's happening, and that is going to shape the direction that art takes. So I think it's just an awesome time to be studying the stuff that we're studying. This should be pretty simple. We're going to keep moving through some interesting readings, and I'm just going to keep posting videos, and it'll be easy work. I think you should stay engaged with what's happening. I don't want to put anything too big on you because I think there's big stuff out there right now. Be safe. I love you all. If you have any questions, you know where to find me. Bye.